Let's cultivate our motivation and reflect on the benefits of bodhicitta, how it is like the nectar that removes the suffering of ourselves and others. So spend a minute and contemplate, figure out for yourself, how does bodhicitta overcome your dukkha, and how does your generating bodhicitta help overcome others' dukkha? And having an idea of the benefits of bodhicitta, generate that noble aspiration as the reason for your life, as the reason for what you're doing today, as the reason for our sharing the Dharma together in this session. So when I think of the benefits of bodhicitta, and how it plays in my life, one thing that becomes quite obvious is the power that bodhicitta has to make us resilient. Yeah, so we all face dukkha, we all face hardships, but when we have a mind of bodhicitta, we become resilient in facing them. These things don't, they may initially affect us, where we feel hurt or sad or whatever, but that mood can't stay long, because as soon as we turn our mind to bodhicitta, then, you can't stay depressed and hopeless and helpless when you turn your mind to bodhicitta. And I'm talking from the perspective that you don't have to generate spontaneous bodhicitta. This can be totally contrived bodhicitta by somebody who just even knows the words and has a little bit of feeling for the words. But when you do, it has a very strong effect on your life. And especially, if we're angry, when I think of the benefits of bodhicitta, one is that it completely soothes over anger, because at least it starts out in my mind, soothes over my own anger, because if we're angry, we can't have bodhicitta. The two just don't fit in the same mental state. And so if we turn our mind to bodhicitta and to the great compassion that is one of the causes of bodhicitta, and to the non-dual wisdom that's another cause of bodhicitta, then the anger can't stay in that mind stream. Yeah. So even people are mad at us, and when people are mad at us, we tend to, or at least I tend to be mad back. Why are you mad at me? That's not fair. But, the moment you turn your mind to bodhicitta, it's like, look, what that anger is about is such stupidagio, such small things, whereas bodhicitta is about something big and something really worthwhile. Are you getting what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean, the difference, this anger is a small mind. It's a very small mind. It's like this, and anger is just focused primarily first, me, and I'm not getting what I want, and other people aren't treating me fairly, and everything's a disaster for me. And it has that tension in it, and it can't see very far. Yeah, can it? In fact, anger, it only sees in the past, because people haven't done anything to harm you yet, although you could get angry about it because for sure they're going to harm you. But mostly our anger is about things that are not happening now, that we are holding on to. This person did this. They didn't do that. This is terrible. How much I've suffered. Oh. And they're not apologizing. No. Yeah. And anger, what are we angry about? Usually things that, I don't know about you, but I don't want to die thinking about those things. I really don't. Yeah. So, if they're not worth thinking about when you're dying, why let your mind spin around them today? Yeah. And so bodhicitta, immediately, it's like, oh, these people who did that, they're sentient beings. They're trying their best, but they're ignorant sentient beings. And so I need to cut them a bit of slack. And also I need to realize that my happiness and suffering, really contrary to all I've ever thought, is not the most important thing in the world. Yeah. That my happiness and suffering are really not the center of the universe. And if I can take that away, this thing that this is so terribly important, then the anger is just like, yeah, it just evaporates. So that's just what bodhicitta does for me personally. So isn't that interesting? Generating the thought based on compassion for others helps make our own mind peaceful. And then if it helps us make our own mind peaceful, goodness knows it helps others' minds be peaceful. Yeah, because then we act in a more peaceful way towards them. Yeah, we can help give them advice and help them when they want it. Yeah. And hopefully it can influence them positively. Okay, so there were some questions from last week. Okay, so in Gyaltsab commentary, footnote 19 says that engaging precepts or ethical restraints are mental factors, while bodhicitta is a main mind. How are precepts or ethical restraints mental factors? The mental factor of intention, I would say yes. Yeah, they're definitely the mental factor of intention, because you are attending setting a very firm intention to do one thing or to not do another. Okay, why would you then say that? The next question is, why is bodhicitta a main mind? Okay, and here it says the mind that accompanies the aspiration to complete enlightenment for the purpose of others. Sometimes it's said that it is the main mind that has those two aspirations, to benefit others and to attain awakening. Okay, so here it phrases it differently as the main mind that's accompanying those aspirations, but it kind of boils down to the same point. Basically, okay, it is that, if you have an aspiration has to exist in a main mind. It doesn't exist in outer space all by itself. And that aspiration, it could be the mental factor of intention. There's also a mental factor of aspiration. And it also includes other mental factors. In the case of bodhicitta, it could be mental factor of non-harmfulness, which is great compassion. Okay, the mental factor of non-attachment, which is love. So when you say it's the main mind, you're including all those various mental factors that have to be present to make it a mind of bodhicitta. So it isn't just the mental factor of intention or of compassion or whatever. It's the whole mental state. Yeah. So you remember when we study low rig, every mental state, every primary mind has the 5 omnipresent mental factors, and then it has all these other mental factors too, depending upon what it's focusing on and how it's focusing on that object. Okay. So so that's why that you say it's a main mind with those aspirations, rather than just some aspiration kind of hanging out there by itself, because an aspiration never exists by itself. Yeah. So this is the thing, when we hear about low rig, we hear main minds, mental factors, main minds, 6 kind mental factors. Actually there's lots and lots, but they're just going to tell us 81, 82. No, 51, 52. Yeah, 52, right? And, and then our mind, our conceptual mind, divides these all into nice, neat little categories. Here's the mental factor of compassion. Here's the mental factor of inspiration. Here's the mental factor of contact, as if they're all different things. And then a mental state, we grab, like these mental states were physical things, we grab one piece of the puzzle here and another piece, and all these mental factors and main minds are like different pieces of the puzzle that we stick together, but actually they're different pieces of the puzzle. They just have to be stuck together at that moment. But, when it's explained, they share 5 things in common. And when you contemplate that, you realize they aren't things that are out there that you're just bringing together. Yeah, they're things that are completely woven together. They have the same object. They occur at the same time. They have the same aspect. Yeah, they're completely woven together. And you need all of them together to have that mental state. If you leave one of those mental factors out, you don't have that mental state. Okay, so that's why. Make sense? Okay. So I also don't understand the reasoning that if we say the Buddha does not possess the engaging bodhisattva precepts, it means he does not have the pratimoksha precepts either. Okay, so what would be the reason for saying that the Buddha does not have the Bodhisattva precepts? He doesn't have the engaging bodhicitta. What would be the reason for saying that? Because he's already enlightened. Yeah. So that would then also have to be the reason for saying that he doesn't have tantric vows and he doesn't have pratimoksha vows either. It would have to be the same reason. Okay. Now, is that reasoning correct?
On the basis of all of those precepts that he attained Buddhahood, and the continuity of those precepts remain with his mind.
Yeah, so his becoming a Buddha would not cut the continuity of the Bodhisattva precepts? Okay. And his becoming a Buddha wouldn't cut the continuity of his wishing to abstain from, the 5 non-virtues that are, yeah, no. Yeah, he still has those intentions. It isn't that you become a Buddha and then all of a sudden you throw those intentions out. Yeah. Does the Buddha still, is he doing the Bodhisattva's deeds? Yeah. They wouldn't necessarily be called Bodhisattva deeds because he's not a Bodhisattva, but the deeds are the same thing. And they're supported by the collection of merit and the collection of wisdom. Yeah. So he would still have, be doing the same deeds as bodhisattvas do. So that wouldn't cut the continuity of the bodhisattva ethical restraints or of any of the other ethical restraints that a Buddha took as a sentient being. Okay. Yeah, like, oh, I became a Buddha. Now I have no ethical restraints. I can do anything I want. Yeah, you can, but your ethical restraints are so habituated in your mind that there's a whole lot of things that you're not going to do. Okay, so I think that's it. Yeah. Any other questions from last week? Yeah. So it's good you think about these things and don't just, they're said in the text and you say, yeah, okay, but think about why these things are said.
From your motivation as well as from the week before, non-dual wisdom, that refers to, can you explain that a little bit further? I'm not sure.
Yeah, non-dual wisdom is referring to an understanding of emptiness. Yeah. Okay? So it doesn't have to be a direct perception of emptiness.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then in verse 11 goes quite a bit back, but then it says, it's very precious since the sole captain of my creators investigated well with immeasurable awareness. So this immeasurable awareness, can you explain that? I'm not sure
it's talking about the Buddha's omniscient mind. Yeah. So with his omniscient mind, the Buddha can see all the benefits of bodhicitta that we can't always see. Okay, so I think we're on verse 24, right? So last time we talked about how other sentient beings, even the ones who killed us, who care about us the most, how all those sentient beings don't even have the attitude of bodhicitta towards us or encourage us to generate bodhicitta. And these are the samsaric beings that care about us the most of any living beings, and they don't even have the bodhicitta, or encourage us. So, remembering that is helpful because then we remember, don't take refuge in ordinary living beings. They're kind to us. Yes, definitely they're kind. And we meditate a lot on their kindness. But they are not objects of refuge because they don't have the same qualities as the 3 jewels. And so, verse 23 states that very clearly. Yeah. And so, who's going to lead us to full awakening? It's going to be the three jewels, not ordinary living beings. Okay, then verse 24 is going on about ordinary living beings, that they don't generate a bodhicitta or great compassion, that kind of concern, even for their own purpose. So let alone them not generating it for our sake or encouraging us to generate it. They don't generate it to improve their own lot or for their own benefit. Okay? So sentient beings have not generated, let's see what this translation says. I like it better usually. If those beings have never before even dreamt of such an attitude for their own sake, how would it ever arise for the sake of others? Okay, so they've never even dreamt of a bodhicitta aspiration for themselves, so they're certainly not going to think about it for others. So this is not a reason to criticize sentient beings and turn against them or whatever, but it's a reason to really get clear about who are our objects of refuge and why bodhicitta is so precious, because it's not something that's commonly thought of by ordinary beings. Yeah. In fact, probably more people know about horse racing than know about bodhicitta. Yeah. Or more people know about the cost of the latest new car that came out than they've even heard about bodhicitta. So, that's a reason also for us to have compassion towards sentient beings, because they don't understand this. Then 25 is called praising it as a summary. What does this outline say for that? This outline says conclusion and praise. Okay, so 25 says, this intention to benefit all beings, which does not arise in others even for their own sake, is an extraordinary jewel of the mind, and its birth is an unprecedented wonder. So that's summing up all the benefits of bodhicitta, especially in this section we've been talking about aspiring bodhicitta. Yeah, so all the benefits of that. And when you really think about it and read these verses, your mind goes, yeah, that's really true. This is really something very, very special. And how fortunate I am to have come in contact with it, even to have the mind that praises bodhicitta or has high regard for bodhicitta, even to have that kind of mind of respect and aspiration to develop bodhicitta. That already, how fortunate I am to be able to have that kind of attitude. Yeah, because so easily I could have been born as somebody who never even heard the word bodhicitta, or I could have been born as somebody who heard the word bodhicitta and then said, oh, that's just it's too fantastical, it's unrealistic, I'm not even going to bother with that. Or somebody who says, oh, that's too hard, forget it. Yeah, so just to appreciate our own state of how, fortunate we are just to come across that and have that aspiration. Okay, then verse 26, how can I fathom the depth of the goodness of this jewel of the mind, the panacea that receives the world of pain, that relieves the world of pain, and is the source of all its joy? So it's kind of saying, this is talking about the engaging mind now. So, how can we fathom what bodhicitta actually is? it is like a jewel of the mind that pacifies the world of pain and is the source of its joy. But how can we, as just ordinary sentient beings, who are so self-centered, and short-sighted, how can we even comprehend the huge, space that bodhicitta takes up? It's incredible. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things we can't understand in the world. And understanding rocket science is easier than understanding all the benefits of bodhicitta. Yeah. And rocket science, I don't know about you, but this is what's really interesting, is I have no aspiration to learn rocket science. And because I have no aspiration and no interest in it, it seems difficult to me. Yeah, for somebody who thinks rocket science is fascinating, that topic is not difficult. So much hinges on our level of interest in a topic. Yeah, so rather than tell ourselves, I can't do it, or I'm too stupid, or whatever it is, to really check and see if we're actually interested, because if we are interested, we do have some aspiration, then it becomes much easier because the force of our happy, joyful aspiration is pushing us on. Okay, so that's why it's so important to learn about the benefits of bodhicitta, so that we will have that aspiration. Yeah. And Gyaltsab actually says a little bit later that if you don't understand the benefits of bodhicitta, it's going to be really hard to generate it. Okay, so think, why would that be? Yeah, why is learning the benefits going to help you generate, and why is not knowing the benefits going to prevent you from generating bodhicitta? Yeah, so think about that, because it's the same example with the rocket science. Yeah, I mean, and we see it in our life all the time. Why do we not do certain things? Even we're on the road to do them, or even it's our job to do them, or even they're going to benefit us if we do them. Why do we not do those things? Because we're not interested. And we don't really see the benefits of it. And we see the benefits more of just lounging around or doing what we want to do. Okay, so that happens just in our regular daily life, isn't it? Yeah, do you see yourself putting off doing things, certain things, or wiggling your way out of doing certain things? Yeah, why? Oh, those things are boring. Yeah, I don't see why I need to do them. Yeah. So there, you can just see your own experience. Whereas if you saw the benefit of it, then you do it. So Gyaltsab says, how can we put a measure to the merits of that kind of mind? Okay. So then, ask yourself again, it's the cause of the joy, for the joy of all migrators. Why? Why would bodhicitta be the cause of joy for all migrators? It's the remedy for the dukkha of sentient beings. Why is it the remedy for the dukkha of sentient beings? Okay. And the merits of this precious mind, what are they? Yeah. Why are the merits of such a mind so extensive? Okay, so I'm not telling you the answers. This is your homework. Go back and think about these things and, even write out a list. because this is how you will come to appreciate the value of sentient beings, value of bodhicitta, is if you do this. If you just hear, it's the cause of joy, it's the remedy of suffering, and it has great merit, you say, yeah, what else is new? Let's go on to the next verse. But you're just saying it because it seems right, but you aren't really understanding. Yeah? So if you go and think about it and even write out some of your ideas, then you'll begin to appreciate bodhicitta. And that appreciation will, make you aspire to generate it. And by having that aspiration, then you'll create the causes to generate it. Okay? So the Gyaltsabje then quotes from the sutra requested by Viradatta. The merits of the bodhicitta, if they were put into form, all the sphere of space would be filled. It is even more than that. So they make this example of something physical, yeah, and they also say, offering to the Buddha, all the good things in the universe for so many eons, if the merit of that were put into space, it would be infinitesimal compared to the merit of bodhicitta. So why? Why? What's so special about bodhicitta? Because we're always taught that making offerings to the Buddha, especially of precious gems and things like that, creates so much wonderful merit. So why is just sitting there and thinking about bodhicitta and having a heart of bodhicitta, even you're not doing anything, so much more merit than making, universes full of offerings to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas? Why? What do you think?
One reason is because the basis is so vast, it's all sentient beings, so that increases the merit that comes from such an activity or such an aspiration, motivating an activity.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just all sentient beings, but it's all sentient beings for the rest of time, for everlasting time, eons and eons and eons.
Yeah.
And as long as that mind is there, it accumulates all that merit for all that time.
When I think of all the jewels and all the great offerings that we give to Buddhas, it's just this whole idea that they just disintegrate and they go out of existence. But there's something about bodhicitta that doesn't have any type of terminating contract to the end of it, or disintegrated in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So offering jewels and those kinds of things are just things, that arise out of the four elements and disintegrate. And, what is the Buddha going to do with all those jewels anyway? They're really not of very much interest to the Buddha. But if we generate bodhicitta, then the Buddha is really interested. Then the Buddha is really feeling very happy. Whereas, we give the Buddha all these jewels, and it's like, have you ever been in a situation where people's given you so many things, and then you have to spend your time sorting through them, returning them, giving them to other people? Yeah. If you ever get married, and have a big wedding, this is what I had to do after I got married, We had to go through all the wedding gifts, and then we returned most of them because we wanted to travel in Europe. Yeah, so then you have to spend hours going back to stores and returning things and getting the money and then some of the things you get as wedding gifts are really corny. I remember one in particular, but I won't tell you about it. Anyway, the idea is, what are you going to do with all those physical things anyway? Yeah, and whereas if somebody generates bodhicitta, wow, that really is going to be an important thing for the existence of sentient beings. That's really going to change the world. Okay. They're not going to write it up in the New York Times. Okay, so-and-so generated bodhicitta today. But that's maybe why it's even more precious, because then you're not going to, can you imagine? You're a bodhisattva, and they wrote about it in the New York Times, and then the next thing, you have all these reporters calling you, somebody, they want to interview you for 60 minutes, they want you to write a book, yeah. And here you are, you're trying to benefit all sentient beings, and you get bombarded by all these ridiculous things, So, so it makes some sense why bodhisattvas don't normally announce themselves, because then you have to deal with all this craziness. Yeah. I mean, I look at what His Holiness goes through. And he can't even walk down the street. Yeah. In McLeod Ganj, he can't even take a walk outside of the compound because he would be mobbed. Yeah. So he endures all of that for our benefit. But I don't know. Okay. So, verse 27, this is talking about the validity of bodhicitta. If merely a benevolent intention excels veneration of the Buddhas, then what need to mention striving to make all beings without exception happy? Okay, so, this one is, even if the mere intent to benefit sentient beings is so fantastic, imagine having bodhicitta towards them. So the mere intent to benefit sentient beings is, my neighbor is elderly and they need groceries during the pandemic, and so I'm going to go buy them groceries and deliver them. Yeah. So we look at that, and that's a wonderful intention to benefit sentient beings. Yeah. Or somebody's dog is sick, and you take the dog to the vet for them. Or, somebody, where you work your way on up, somebody wants to go to college and they need some money to go to college. And so you help them out. All these ways in which human beings help each other. You have a friend who's upset and you talk to them and listen to them. All these things are intentions to benefit sentient beings, and they're all considered virtuous. And that's even more merit than making the offerings to all the Buddhas, because you're really doing something to benefit sentient beings. And Buddhas cherish sentient beings more than they cherish themselves. So when we help sentient beings, we're doing what pleases the Buddha. Yeah. And it pleases the Buddha more than, stockpiling jewels that he doesn't know what to do with. Okay. So I'm not dissing the wonderful aspiration people have to make offerings to the Buddha, but I'm just saying, transforming our mind into a bodhicitta motivation for the long term, because it deals with all sentient beings, because it is working for their benefit for infinite time, is so far superior. Okay, verse 28. Okay. Though wishing to be rid of misery, they run towards misery itself. Although wishing to have happiness, like an enemy, they ignorantly destroy it. This verse is very, very powerful. And this verse, is why we want to have compassion for sentient beings. Okay? Because what it's saying is, although each and every sentient being wants to be happy and not suffer, Yeah, because they don't know what the actual causes of happiness and suffering are, wishing for happiness, they create the causes for suffering. Yeah. And we see this over and over and over again. You know, people who think that wealth is the cause of happiness and then, manipulate people, lie to people, cheat people, do horrible things to other people to get wealth. And they think that these activities are creating the cause for happiness. But actually what they're doing is they're creating the causes for their own lower rebirths and for themselves to be lied to and manipulated and be impoverished in future lives. You know, and when you look around, you see this so much. Yeah, I mean, look at the people who we read about in the paper every day. They all want happiness. They all want freedom from suffering. But the actions they're doing, are kind of a festival of the 10 non-virtues. And nothing good is going to come out of that. And they don't even realize that. They don't even understand that. So it's not even, like us sometimes, we know what we're about to do is negative and we do it anyway. That's not so good. We know it's harmful and we do it anyway. But so many people don't even know it's harmful. Their whole idea of ethics is completely upside down, or their whole idea of what causes suffering is and what causes happiness is upside down. And so they think that creating, all these causes of misery is going to bring them happiness. And that's really a pitiful situation when you look at it and you see, because that this is why the Buddha calls us ordinary beings childish. Yeah? Because we're not even childish, we're foolish. Yeah? It's like, I want to be happy, let's drink some rat poison. Yeah? So, I mean, that verse really, if you meditate on it, it's got to bring some feeling to you. And I think I use this verse a lot in situations where normally somebody's behavior would make me angry. In a situation where normally, I don't know what normal is, usually, somebody's behavior, I would get irritated, I'd get angry, I would get judgmental. Whenever my mind is going in that direction, I think about this verse. And then it could, I can't keep going in that direction. Yeah. How can I be angry at some sentient being who wants happiness and ignorantly creates the cause of suffering? Yeah. I can't be angry at such a person. So it's, Okay, so mark this verse, you may have some verses in your mind or written down that are especially potent verses for you. At least for me, this is one of them, okay? Verse 29. For those who are deprived of happiness and burdened with many sorrows, it satisfies them with all joys, dispels all suffering. Okay? So here the wording is a little bit different. Those who are destitute of happiness and have many sufferings, I shall satisfy them with every happiness and remove all their sufferings. So in Fido's translation, it's us saying, I will satisfy them and take them out of suffering. In the other verse, in the translation here, it just says bodhicitta satisfies them with all joys and dispels all suffering. So that could also be taken to mean when we ourselves generate bodhicitta, it dispels our suffering and brings joy to us. Yeah. And personally, I think it can go either way, in term, because bodhicitta, yes, when we are destitute of happiness and have many sufferings, if we think of bodhicitta, it can overcome those kinds of things. Similarly, if we see others that are destitute of happiness and have many sufferings, with bodhicitta, we make the determination to do our best to satisfy them with every happiness and remove their sufferings. Okay, so that's also good to do. No, when we see people doing things where we would normally get really judgmental and, really upset and angry, this guy's such a jerk, look what they're doing, and they're harming so many people. And then you think, well, what would it be like to transform my mind and say, I want to give them all happiness and remove all their suffering? Because somehow what they're doing is motivated by their wish for happiness and to avoid suffering and their ignorance about how to attain that. So what would happen if I were able to show them the real causes of happiness so that they changed how they thought and they changed their behavior? Yeah. So then they would be able to create the causes of happiness themselves, and they would feel joy. And instead of the suffering that is motivating them to act right now, some kind of benevolent motivation might help them. Okay. So, if we are going to apply it to what's happening in the world, right now, here we are faced with John Bolton about to publish his tell-all book about Trump and disclose all the things that he could have disclosed when the House committee investigating Trump's transgressions asked him to come and testify, and he refused to testify. Well, he made excuses. He didn't refuse. He said, let the courts work it out whether somebody like me should be able to go, even though Trump says no. And then how he came out during the impeachment proceedings and said, I'll testify if they'll subpoena me, when he knew very well that the Republican Congress, the Republican Senate was not going to subpoena him. And he's somebody whose testimony would have had a very strong effect on the outcome of the whole impeachment thing, even though he himself said, I don't think it would matter much if I had, testified to the Senate. By that far along, maybe, it wouldn't have mattered so much, but earlier on, it would have made a big difference. Okay, so here's John Bolton. And people are making a lot of fun of him now that, he decided to testify after he received the advance for writing his book. And, I don't know if it's true or not. But anyway, okay. What we're looking at, I don't know about you, but my mind, of course, I don't like Trump's, his whole thing that he did about Ukraine and the cover up and all that. And I don't like, Bolton has good information. I'm glad it's coming out, but it's not going to have the impact that it needed to have many months ago. And yet now he's bringing it out and again is okay. So then my mind's like, against Trump, against Bolton. And then who suffers? Me. Okay. Trump and Bolton don't suffer. They don't even know me. They don't even care if I approve or disapprove of them. But I suffer, And what good does that do? What good does that anger do me at all? Yesterday on the BBC, I talked about the idea of righteous anger. So I could say, but my anger's righteous. I want to get these guys out of here. But my anger doesn't do me any good, righteous or not righteous, okay? But what would happen if I saw through this whole thing that's going on to two sentient beings, who want to be rich or powerful or well-known or well-respected, or basically they want to feel successful. They want to feel successful, that they're successful, either because they have wealth or because they have power or because they can make other people do things because people are afraid of them or intimidated by them. But somehow it's motivated by their own feeling of internal poverty. Wouldn't it be wonderful if there was some way that I could give them happiness? Now I could give them all this wealth and all that power, but I don't think that would actually satisfy them. I don't think at the end of the day they would actually feel successful and that they would actually feel good about themselves. Even I were able to give them tons of wealth and make them dictators over the world, or what do they say? The wheel-turning monarchs of a certain number of continents or a certain number of world streams. Even I could do that for them. That wouldn't bring happiness at the end, Not when your mind is bound up in ignorance and craving like that. But wouldn't it be wonderful if somehow, I could befriend them and talk to them about having different values and what actually creates happiness, what are the causes of suffering. And if slowly, because it's not going to be a quick change, you're not going to change minds like these, like really quickly. But slowly over time, wouldn't it be wonderful if I could redirect their energies so that they could create happiness for themselves and for other beings? And when I think about doing that, I feel happier. And I also know that it would do some good for the world if I could do that. And it would do some good for these two other living beings who have been kind to me in all my, so many previous lives. So let's switch my motivation and want to give them happiness instead of wanting to retaliate for what they did that I don't like. Make some sense? Okay, so this is why I say so often that Dharma has to apply to all aspects of our life. Because if you apply this here, it's going to make things so much better for yourself and others. Okay, verse 30. Okay, so I shall it goes on from 29. So it satisfies them with all joys, dispels all suffering, and clears away confusion. Where is there comparable virtue? Where is there even such a friend? Where is there merit similar to this? Okay, so if we can change our mind and want to give them happiness, okay, then our focus is it clears, here it says clears away confusion, which could refer to our confusion and their confusion. So in terms of us, it clears away our ignorance in seeing these people as permanent and that they're never going to change and they're always going to be who they are now, which is not true at all. But here, if we do it the other way, I shall eliminate their ignorance. Wouldn't that also be wonderful? Because then they, could create the causes for their own happiness, and they would have some mental peace and feel good about themselves, which is the best kind of happiness. They would have some inner peace and inner happiness. Okay, so where else is there's something as virtuous as this? And especially not just wanting them to know how to create the causes of worldly happiness and abandon the causes of worldly suffering. But wouldn't it be great if we could lead them on the Bodhisattva path? Yeah? Donnie and Johnny become Bodhisattvas. Not in this life, but sometime in a future lives, because we make that connection, we make that determination. Yeah? So that's something extremely virtuous. Where is there such a friend? Isn't teaching somebody about bodhicitta really being a good friend to them? Isn't that being a much better friend than siding with them against their enemies? Yeah. Because usually we think of friendship. A friend is somebody who's going to side against me when somebody else mistreats me. And my friend is someone who's going to encourage me when somebody else puts me down or deprecates me. Yeah. And here we're saying, oh no, a friend is somebody who teaches you bodhicitta. Because when you generate bodhicitta, then you have access to all happiness in the universe for yourself and others. Now, so where is there another friend like that? You're not going to find them on Facebook, and you're not going to find them on a dating app, okay? And you're not going to find them on a meditation app, for just broad-based mindfulness meditation. Which, by the way, there's an article in the New York Times now about how to choose a good meditation app. Yeah? So it looks at some current meditation apps and tells their qualities, and, it gives you the criteria for how to look for a good meditation app. Okay. It's better than, teaching you other things, but it's kind of strange at the same time. Yeah. And if it helps people, that's good. But where is a friend who's going to teach you bodhicitta or even mention the name bodhicitta to you? Yeah. And where is there the opportunity to create such merit? Yeah. Certainly striving for our own liberation is not going to, that intention is not going to create anywhere near the intention of seeking Buddhahood in order to benefit all beings and lead them to happiness. How can you compare the merit like that? I mean, it's so different. It's so different. Okay? Think about these. And so when Shantideva asks those questions, they sound like rhetorical questions. Where else is there something as virtuous? Where is there such a friend? Where is there such merit? Okay, don't take them as rhetorical questions. Sit down and think about them. Yeah, where can you find something that's as virtuous, or a better friend, or such exquisite merit? Yeah, where? So think about it. So then the next section is praising the person that has generated such a mind. Okay. So here the outline says, suitable for praise because of helping out of compassion without being asked. Okay, this one says, they are worthy of praise because even though they have not been entrusted with a specific task, by drawing upon great compassion, they act to assist others. That's a much more complete statement. So here's what the verse says. Okay. If whoever repays a kind deed is worthy of some praise, then what need to mention the bodhisattvas who do good without it being asked of them? Okay. So in our world, if somebody does something kind, they're praised. We praise them. Yeah. So-and-so, my carpet was really stained with orange juice and spaghetti sauce and cat poo and Dawn soap that stunk to high heaven. And this person, is helping me clean the rug. How grateful. We're grateful, aren't we? Cleaning a rug, it takes a lot of energy. And here's somebody who's come to help us clean the rug. And we praise them, okay? So if somebody who reciprocates benefit is worthy of some praise, so maybe they're helping us because before we did some small thing to help them. Maybe they ran out of gas and we went and, got some gas and got them all, fueled up again, or maybe their battery was dead and we went over and they, with our car and jumped the battery. Okay. So they're reciprocating by helping us clean the rug, and we're really, really grateful. Okay. And we praise that. We'll say to our friends, won't we? Oh, so-and-so, look what they did. They really helped me. Yeah. Or somebody helps you rebuild your car. Yeah. You're interested in, you got some beat up car and you love rebuilding cars and your friend comes over and helps you do that. Like, wow, what a good friend that we had such a good time. They're really kind. Okay. So if we praise somebody like that, then what need is there to mention a bodhisattva who helps us without us even asking them to? Okay, so a bodhisattva who sees a sentient being in need and helps them. Yeah, so this could range from help. Maybe it's a bodhisattva who helps us clean our carpet or rebuild our car. Yeah, but maybe a bodhisattva sees at this particular moment we are ripe to hear a little bit of the Dharma. Or, this particular moment, yeah, the bodhisattva kind of sees, oh, the Dalai Lama is giving a talk over Zoom. Go and listen to that. Yeah? So somebody who helps us in that way by introducing us to the Dharma and getting us going on that path, that kind of person, shouldn't we praise even more or think more highly of than the one who helps us clean the rug? Then verse 32, the world honors as virtuous one who sometimes gives a little plain food disrespectfully to a few beings, which satisfies them for only half a day. And let's read this with the next verse. What need to be said then of one who eternally bestows the peerless bliss of the Sugatas upon limitless numbers of beings, thereby fulfilling all their hopes? Okay, so it's true. The world honors somebody as virtuous who, sees a beggar, sitting in the street or standing on the street corner and pulls out a half-eaten sandwich and kind of tosses it in the bowl or whatever, disrespectfully. And that satisfies the person in need for maybe not even a half a day. But, you think, oh, that person's generous. That's good what they did. Okay? Yeah. We don't say, oh, why didn't they go out and buy them a whole sandwich? We say, oh, that's good. They gave the other half of their sandwich. Or they gave a granola bar, or whatever it is. And okay, they kind of, threw it like that. But never mind, still that person got some food, and that's what they need. Okay, so if we praise that, then what need, or how can we even compare that to somebody who constantly bestows the unsurpassed bliss of the Sugatas for a long time upon countless sentient beings, fulfilling all their hopes and wishes? Okay, so here talking about, a bodhisattva who is constantly acting for the welfare of others, countless sentient beings, and fulfills all their hopes. So we may say, but wait a minute, if there's one bodhisattva, how can they fill all the hopes of all sentient beings? They're one person, hanging out in Philadelphia. How are they going to give all happiness to all sentient beings, even some cat who's in a bad mood? Okay? So it's not that bodhisattvas are dishing out worldly happiness right, left, and center, because not all sentient beings, even if a bodhisattva did that, would receive it because their minds are so closed. Yeah? I mean, if the Buddha came in right now and talked to Maitri, or her namesake, if Maitreya Buddha came and said, Maitri, you're my namesake, chill out, be happy, develop bodhicitta, stop growling, would she be able to take it in? But if one person has bodhicitta and with that motivation does even a simple action, the merit created by that action is enormous, and that merit is dedicated for the welfare of all sentient beings. So when that bodhisattva actually attains Buddhahood and is able to manifest millions of bodies, and knows exactly how to manifest in order to help each sentient being at who's receptive at any particular moment, then that Buddha will, without effort, just manifest in that way. So even that bodhisattva is creating that cause by doing some small thing. It functions to benefit all of us in the long term. Okay? And so that's why we see over and over again the importance of having a long-term view, of not getting stuck only in what benefits and harms in this life. Yeah, because samsara and our so far infinite lifetimes in it, are much bigger than that. So we need that big view. So then verse 33. Okay. What need be said then of one who eternally bestows the peerless bliss of Sugatas upon, I read that already, didn't I? Upon limitless numbers of beings, thereby fulfilling all their hopes. Okay, let's actually just pause here, because you may have some questions or comments.
Someone asks online, even if we can understand the benefits of bodhicitta, sometimes it seems utopic. Can you give examples on how to apply it every day?
Yes, sometimes it does sound utopic. And I think that is part of its power. Yeah, that's part of its power, is that it pulls us out of our mind that states one reason after another about how sentient beings cannot be helped, how the world is corrupt, how there's no hope, how there's environmental destruction, then this is bad and that's bad and the other thing is bad. Yeah. So I think sometimes stretching our mind to think in a utopia kind of way is good for our mind. Because you may say, but that's totally unrealistic. But it's just as unrealistic as the mood it pulls us out of. Because do you think the mood that says, oh, the whole world is going to hell in a handbasket and we're destroying the planet, we're polluting the air and polluting the water, and there's racism and there's injustice and there's a pandemic, and and unemployment benefits end soon, and what are all those people going to do who are unemployed, and there's 1 million more applying for unemployment this month than last month, and then plus in Africa what's going on, the virus is spreading like wildfire, and in Brazil, and this whole world is just, it's had it. Do you think that's a realistic attitude? When we're sunk in the middle of it, we think it's very realistic. Yeah, and we treasure our despair and we treasure our depression. And we think, yes, it's all horrible. And we think that's a realistic view. It's not. It's totally distorted. That view doesn't see goodness anywhere. And you're going to tell me there's no goodness in this world? So, our mind that says, oh, this world is going to hell, that's the same thing. We can't see the goodness. And you're going to tell me that mind is more realistic than the utopia mind? So I think sometimes it's good for us. Let's stretch our mind and imagine, being surrounded by bodhisattvas and receiving the benefit of what they're teaching us all the time. And remembering that bodhisattvas don't always benefit us by teaching us from a text, which is so comfortable to learn from. They often teach us by putting us in difficult situations where we have to sink or swim and we have to learn something. Okay, so what would happen if we saw the world like that? Wouldn't that be a lot better space than seeing it as just hopeless?
Add on to that is, it also shows me that whatever kind of virtuous motivations I have, most of the time I want something to come back in the moment. I want a reward. I want some sort of benefit because I really am hooked into, I want it right now.
Yeah.
That's as far as I can see. And so I really get hooked into putting a demand out into the world that my mind of bodhicitta depends on you responding to it in a certain way, with a certain level of gratitude. So to be able to unhook from what's going on out there and to totally focus on the mind itself that's trying to generate this thought, despite what might happen in response to whatever efforts we put out.
Right. Very good. And also, in terms of somebody saying this sounds utopic, actually it doesn't. Because the bodhisattvas in all of these verses are working with ordinary sentient beings whose minds are completely overwhelmed by the 3 poisons. It's not utopia at all. Yeah, they're benefiting all these sentient beings who are going, what are you talking about? Or I want some chocolate, or leave me alone, or this doesn't apply to me, or something like that. Yeah, bodhisattvas are working right in the world. They don't work in a utopia. A utopia does not need bodhisattvas in it. Our world does.
I just wanted to say how much I like. Last week we did the 8 precepts of aspiring bodhicitta.
Uh-huh.
And using the verses, I realized I hadn't done this in this way. For that first one, where you'd remember the advantages of bodhicitta repeatedly, I think I always kind of merged that with the second one of kind of trying to generate it. But for me, actually, I'd forgotten about the advantages part of it. I just was trying to generate it. And I find that using the verses in this text are really lovely to do. And I wasn't actually doing that point right. So it made me see the value of that precept more clearly. I don't think I thought about the advantages well enough.
Yeah. And you see how thinking about the advantages uplifts your mind. Yeah. It's a very strong effect on the mind. Okay, so we're stopping after 33. Good. Okay, so you have your homework, you have something to contemplate.